They stole her inheritance, tried to rewrite her past. But what they didn't know was that she'd inherited more than a fortune. She inherited fire. Malene Reeves didn't come for revenge. She came for reckoning. And when the truth bloomed, the thorns cut deep. My name is Malene Reeves, but most people just call me Maddie. I was the quiet one in the family, the one who stayed behind when everyone else moved on. For years, I took care of my father as his health declined, managing the estate and keeping his legacy alive. The Reeves house, a grand old estate in Charleston, was more than a home. It was a piece of our family's soul. Built brick by my father James Reeves, he planted the white rose bushes himself the year I got engaged, saying they'd be perfect for my wedding photos. Those roses outlasted the marriage. My ex-husband Holden left me not long after the wedding for his secretary. Her name was Trisha. She's now his wife. And this morning, she showed up in my garden wearing Lou Bowens like she owned the place. Didn't need to look up when I heard her heels crunching the gravel. I just kept pruning the roses. Well, Trisha's voice dripped with fake sweetness. Still playing in the dirt, Maddie? I didn't answer right away. I clipped a thorny branch, careful not to crush the petals. You know why I'm here, she said, stepping closer, her shadow falling across the flower bed. The reading of the will is tomorrow, and Holden and I thought it best to settle things civilly. I wiped my hands on my apron and turned to face her. There's nothing to settle. This is my father's home. Was, she corrected, lips curled into a smirk. And since Holden was like a son to James for 15 years, we believe we're entitled to our fair share. My grip tightened on the shears. The same Holden who cheated on me? With you? I asked, my voice low but steady. Ancient history, she shrugged. Your father forgave him. They still played golf every Sunday. My father wouldn't leave him. Anything, I replied. He wasn't stupid. Her smile faltered just for a moment. We'll see about that, she said, turning to leave. You might want to start packing. We'll need at least a month to renovate once we move in. As her car drove away, I looked down at the crushed petals in my hand. White roses meant new beginnings, my father always said. But today, all I saw was red. I stood in the garden long after Trisha's car disappeared down the driveway. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the rage that boiled beneath the surface. Just 2 weeks since my father passed, and already the vultures were circling. As I knelt to gather the fallen rose petals, something caught my eye. A small envelope, half buried in the soil beneath the rose bush. Its corner was damp with dew, but the handwriting on it was unmistakable. It was my father's. To Maddie, written in the deliberate, confident script I'd known all my life. My breath caught. I brushed off the dirt and turned it over in my hands. It felt heavy, like it carried more than just paper inside. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I trusted with this. My best friend and attorney, Danielle Cooper. Trisha just paid me a visit, I said the moment she answered. She's worse than we thought. Can you come over? I'll be there in 20, she replied without hesitation. And I'm bringing wine. True to her word, Danielle arrived with her briefcase in one hand and a bottle of Pinot Noir in the other. You haven't opened it yet? She asked, eyeing the envelope as we sat in my father's study. I wanted to wait for you. Then let's see what he left you. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter and a small brass key. Dear Maddie, I read aloud, my father's voice echoing in my mind. If you're reading this, someone's already made a move on the estate. Knowing human nature, I'm guessing it's Trisha. She always reminded me of a shark, all teeth, no soul. Danielle chuckled into her wine glass. The key enclosed opens the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside, you'll find everything you need to protect what's yours. Remember what I taught you about chess. Sometimes you sacrifice a pawn to protect the queen. Love always, Dad. I looked up, eyes glassy. Danielle was already unlocking the drawer. He came to me 6 months ago, she said softly. Right after his diagnosis, he knew exactly how this would play out. The drawer clicked open, revealing a thick manila envelope and a USB drive. Danielle handed them to me, her face solemn. There's more, she said. 3 days before he died, your dad added a modification to his will, a clause that's going to change everything. What kind of clause? She smiled slightly. The kind that sets a trap. We spread the contents of the envelope. Across the desk, surveillance photos, bank statements, email printouts. One photo showed Trisha in a dark parking lot handing something to a man in a suit. My father had them followed. He didn't just hope for the best, Danielle said. He planned for the worst. And suddenly I knew. Whatever Trisha thought she was walking into tomorrow, she had no idea the storm that was waiting for her. That night, the house felt different. Colder, still. I sat in my father's study, the documents spread out in front of me, the letter still in my lap. Somewhere between grief and fury, I was beginning to see the shape of a plan. My father's final move in a game he'd been playing, quietly for months. There was a knock on the front door just after 9. I opened it to find my brother Aaron Reeves standing there. He looked nothing like the polished man I'd seen at the funeral. His designer suit was rumpled, his eyes hollowed, out with fatigue. In his hands was a worn leather portfolio gripped like a shield. "You look terrible," I said. "Playing double agent isn't as glamorous as the movies make it out to be," he muttered with a half-smile. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. He entered the study slowly, glancing at the evidence on the desk before sitting down across from me. "I see you found Dad's insurance policy," he said, nodding toward the photos. "Why didn't you tell me what you were doing?" My voice was sharp. I hadn't meant it to be, but the wound was still fresh, because I had to make things right, he said quietly. "After what I did during your divorce, siding with Holden, ignoring how they humiliated you, I was wrong, Maddie. And I knew it." He opened the portfolio and pulled out a check. I stared at it. $500,000. "That's what Trisha offered me," he said. "To testify that Dad wasn't of sound mind when he changed his will." I looked up. "But you didn't take it." "No. I took it straight to Dad. Told him everything." His voice cracked. You should have seen his face. Not angry, just disappointed. That hurt worse than if he'd yelled. So that's when he told me the plan. Asked me to help gather evidence. Aaron reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. I recorded everything. Meetings, threats, even Trisha's voice on tape. Want to hear what she said? He pressed play. "So once the old man kicks it, we'll contest the will. Aaron, you'll testify about his mental state, tie Holden's history. With him, we'll make the case. Maddie won't know what hit her." My hands clenched into fists. "There's more," Aaron said. He fast-forwarded. Holden's voice came next. "We'll sell the house, liquidate everything. Maddie can go back to her little gardening business. She never deserved any of it anyway." "Turn it off," I whispered. He did. Then he pulled out one last document. "This is why I came tonight," he said. "Trisha didn't just want money. She wanted revenge." "For what?" "For making Holden feel guilty, for taking Alamine, for embarrassing them when you caught them together." I swallowed hard, the memory still. Stung, walking into my bedroom, finding them together, her smile triumphant as my world fell apart. "She started embezzling from Dad's company 6 months before that," Aaron said. "He found out right before his diagnosis. That's when he started planning this." I sat back, stunned by the scale of it all. My father had seen what was coming, and instead of confronting it with anger, he crafted a trap so elegant, so complete, it would let them destroy themselves. Sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom. Sometimes it comes in a letter, a drawer, and a father's unwavering belief in his daughter. Tomorrow they would learn that lesson the hard way. The morning of the will reading was humid, the kind of Charleston morning where the air hung thick, with secrets. I wore a simple black dress and my father's watch, something to ground me. Danielle met me on the front steps of the law office, a steely look in her eyes. She wasn't just my attorney today. She was my sword and shield. Inside the boardroom, the temperature dropped with every arrival. Trisha entered first, draped in silk and smugness, Holden at her side like a well-trained lapdog. My brother Aaron sat on my left, tension radiating from his shoulders. On the far end of the table sat Mr. Langston, my father's longtime estate lawyer, looking more amused than somber. "Let's begin," he said, opening a thick folder. James Reeves was a meticulous man, and his will reflects that. But before we address the main inheritance, Mr. Reeves requested a video statement be played. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered, and there he was, my father, seated in his study, surrounded by the white roses he loved so much. "If you're watching this," his voice said, strong despite the oxygen tube tucked under his nose, "then I've left this world behind. But before any vultures start picking at my legacy, I want a few things to be crystal clear." Trisha shifted in her seat. Holden blinked rapidly. "To my daughter, Malene, Maddie, you were my anchor. While others chased ambition, you stayed. You took care of me when I became a shell of the man I was. This home, this legacy, it's yours. You've earned it in sweat, in sacrifice, in silence." I felt Aaron reach beneath the table and squeeze my hand. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. To Holden and Trisha, my father continued, eyes narrowing, "You always thought you were clever, manipulative, entitled, but I didn't raise fools. I learned from them." Gasps erupted, but the video kept rolling. To Aaron, he said, his face softening, "You strayed, but you came back. And because you did, there's still a place for you. Don't waste it." The screen went dark. No one spoke. Langston cleared his throat. "As per the will, the Reeves estate, its properties, liquid assets, and shares of Reeves Holdings are to be transferred solely to Malene Reeves." Trisha surged to her feet. "This is a joke." Langston held up a hand. "There's more. In light of prior allegations and evidence gathered before Mr. Reeves's passing, any party found contesting this will automatically forfeit their right to any residual inheritance, including joint investments or stock options." Holden looked like he'd been slapped. Trisha turned red. "That's illegal!" she shouted. Danielle stood, calm, lethal. "Not when it's a conditional clause approved and notarized before death." Trisha turned on Aaron. You knew about this. Aaron's smile was sad. "I helped him write it." The meltdown began then. Trisha ranted. Holden tried to calm her. Langston calmly passed documents around for signatures. I signed last. As we exited the boardroom, a local news crew waiting outside snapped photos. Trisha tried to shield her face. Danielle leaned toward me and whispered, "Ready for the next part?" I nodded. The real confrontation was still ahead. Back. At the estate, we convened in my father's study. Danielle, Aaron, and I laid out the final part of the plan. "They won't go quietly," Danielle warned. "We need to show our hand, carefully." "What about the recordings?" I asked. Aaron handed me the phone. "All backed up. Also," he pulled out a small matte black device. "Dad installed a voice-activated recorder under the desk drawer. Everything from their visit last week is on it." Danielle's eyes lit up. "We combined that with the bank statements and the photo of the cash handoff." I looked at her. "We don't press charges. Not yet." "What?" Aaron blinked. "Why?" "Because they'll dig their own grave trying to win, and I want the world to see it." That night, I stood alone in the garden. The roses were blooming again. I thought of my father's hands in this soil, of the pain and wisdom that lived here. I wasn't the same woman I'd been 6 months ago. I was becoming someone else. Someone who could hold the line. Someone who understood the difference between vengeance and justice. The trap would spring in 7 days, and I would be ready. The next week passed with calculated calm. The kind that settles in just before a storm. Every morning I walked the garden like a ritual, grounding myself in the scent of white roses and dew-soaked soil. The estate staff, those who had stayed, moved quietly, respectful and curious. Everyone sensed something was coming. Danielle arrived precisely at 9 a.m., on the morning we would spring the final trap. Her briefcase was packed not just with documents, but with truth. Aaron followed shortly after, carrying a large envelope and wearing an expression I recognized from our childhood, the one he wore when we were about to set off fireworks in the neighbor's yard. Trisha and Holden confirmed, Danielle asked, sipping from a thermal mug. They'll be here, I said, watching the driveway through the window. The bait was too good. The bait was a forged letter, carefully crafted and subtly misleading, hinting at hidden documents and assets Dad had left behind. Danielle sent it through her assistant, making it appear like a clerical mistake. Trisha couldn't resist it. Her greed was too loud. At 10:06, their car pulled up. Trisha walked in like she already owned the place, chin high, lips tight with anticipation. Holden followed, his expression more guarded, like he knew this might be more trap than treasure. Why? Are we here again? Trisha asked, eyeing me with suspicion. To close out Dad's estate, I said smoothly. You said you wanted a final inventory. Danielle gestured to the desk. We've gathered everything he cataloged, plus, well, some unexpected finds. I watched her eyes glint at that word. Unexpected. Like what? Holden asked. Bank documents. Recordings. A few legal statements that may clarify your position, Danielle said. Trisha's smile faltered. Aaron opened a small laptop, clicking on a folder labeled Final. The first audio clip played. It was Trisha's voice. Clear, cold, calculated. If we push it through before the will's finalized, no one will question the stock movement. Holden's voice followed. And if Aaron signs off, Malene won't even know until it's done. Trisha stood up. You had no right to record that. Actually, it was Dad, I said. He installed the recorder last year after your last visit. Her face drained. This is entrapment. No, Danielle said, placing a folder in front of her. This is evidence. Inside were photocopies of transferred funds, hidden accounts, and a signed affidavit from a notary who witnessed their forged documents. Holden slumped in his chair. Trisha spun toward Aaron. You set us up. You set yourselves up, he replied. Dad gave you the rope. You tied the knot. The cameras rolled silently from behind the bookshelves, hidden but recording every reaction, every unraveling moment. One by one, the pieces fell into place. Danielle's voice remained calm and firm as she guided them through the legal ramifications. As per the tick clause, she said, eyes locked on Trisha, any attempt to deceive or commit fraud voids all inheritance rights. We already signed, Trisha screeched. You can't undo that. Actually, I said, handing her a highlighted section of the clause, you activated the clause the moment you tried to sell your shares using falsified authority. Holden tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Trisha's rage turned to fear. Danielle didn't flinch. By tomorrow, this footage and these documents will be submitted to the courts and distributed to every partner and board member involved in Reeves Holdings. Trisha staggered back. This is a witch hunt. No, I said. This is closure. She looked at Holden. Say something. Do something. Holden, drained, simply whispered. We're finished. The two of them left the study in silence, the sound of the door closing behind them like the final note in a requiem. Aaron collapsed into the chair beside me. It's over, he said. Not quite, I replied, staring at the monitor. Now it's public. That night, I uploaded the video with a simple caption. The truth deserves witnesses. By morning, it had gone viral. The court of public opinion acted faster than any legal institution. Board members resigned, investigations launched. And the reputation Trisha and Holden had spent years crafting crumbled in days. But none of that brought me the peace I thought it would. It came later, when I stood in the greenhouse. Alone. In the silence, the scent of roses filling the air, I held the old photograph again, Dad and I laughing in the dirt. I realized then that this wasn't just about revenge or even justice. It was about remembering who I was before they tried to erase me, before they called me replaceable, before they tried to turn my silence into consent. My name is Malene Reeves, and I've reclaimed my name, my home, and my story. In the weeks that followed, the dust didn't settle. It reshaped, like tectonic plates realigning beneath our feet. The estate felt different now. Not haunted, exactly, but alive in a way it hadn't been since before Dad got sick. The walls breathed again. The house no longer echoed with absence. It pulsed with purpose. Danielle stayed on to help with the formal transition of Reeves Holdings. Aaron moved into the guest house, quietly taking up a role as my sounding board and silent strength. The media frenzy stormed outside our gates, but inside, we rebuilt. One morning, over coffee on the sunroom balcony, Danielle looked up from her tablet. We've had 22 resignation letters from board members. Another dozen are requesting meetings with you. Let them wait, I said, watching dew slip from the edge of a rose petal. I'm not just filling Dad's seat. I'm restructuring. The whole garden, she smiled. They'll hate that. Then they're welcome to leave. By week 3, I stood before the remaining board of Reeves Holdings. A room of wary executives, aged suits, and startled legal advisors. They expected hesitation. Maybe a speech of gratitude or humility. They got neither. Effective immediately, I said, sliding a folder across the glass table. We are dissolving all subsidiaries that fail our new sustainability audit. Murmurs, gasps. One man stood to object, but Danielle shut him down with a quiet, "Sit." I continued. You operated under the assumption that this company would continue as a monument to exploitation and backroom deals. But this isn't your company anymore. It's mine. It was never about vengeance. Not really. It was about accountability. About course-correcting a legacy tainted by those who wore expensive masks and thought no one would ever pull them off. Later that night, I sat at Dad's old drafting table. His pen still in the cup, his blueprints of the greenhouse still framed. I opened his final journal, one he'd kept during his illness. It wasn't business notes or asset inventories. It was letters. To me. Each entry addressed, to Malene. You are not fragile, though they tried to convince you otherwise. You are the roots beneath the storm. Let them howl. I cried then. The quiet, soul-deep kind of tears. The kind that water something buried. Spring bled into summer. Trisha and Holden had gone silent. No legal challenge, no public statement. Perhaps their shame was louder than any press release. Perhaps they knew better than to provoke a woman with everything to lose, and nothing left to fear. Aaron and I walked the garden paths each evening. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. Once he paused beside the red rose bush we planted. Together, he'd be proud of you, he said. Of us, I corrected. You stayed. That mattered. He nodded. On the anniversary of Dad's passing, we opened the greenhouse to the staff and community. Not as a museum piece, but as a living space. A place for stories, for healing. A nonprofit in his name bloomed from its roots, focused on youth education and community gardens. The media tried to spin it. They always do. But for once, the truth was too solid to distort. I gave one interview. One. What would your father say if he saw all of this now? The reporter asked. I looked past the camera, through the glass of the greenhouse, to where children were planting basil in repurposed ceramic pots. He'd say, Malene, the roses were never the legacy. You were. I don't walk through life the same anymore. I walk rooted. I speak with the certainty of someone who survived the quiet erasure of inheritance, not just of wealth, but of identity. My name is Malene Reeves, and I wasn't built to be silent. Not then, not now, not ever. So to anyone watching, anyone listening, anyone who's ever been told to sit still, to be quiet, to let it go, don't. Reclaim your story, dig in your heels, tend your garden. And when they come for what's yours, remind them, you don't pull roots without consequences.